Folks, we're going to get started pretty quick here. Couple of quick notes. I want to cover some things that have transpired today, and then we'll get into the topics that were posted on the call itself. We did post an announcement today announcing formally that I've made an offer, and he's accepted the offer to come aboard as Director of Engineering, formerly Chief Technology Officer, but Bob Lewandowski, formerly the CTO for a Fortune 100 company, saw enough in our project to decide to come out of retirement, and he approached us at first, and we sat down and had a lot of good conversations and made an agreement, and I think it's the first of probably several that are going to look very similar to this. I think as we move forward, look, I'm going to say something right now, and because you know that I'm always hyperbolic and like to say this kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, he came here and I said, what do you see in this? And he said, I think this is a $10 billion company, and I've thought that from the beginning. I've never not thought that, and so it was really kind of nice to have sort of that, big picture, big vision, big dream kind of a guy come aboard. We'll see what happens when we go ahead and announce that out into the world, and I'm not really, too worried about one thing or the other that comes from that. But at the end of the day, I think the actual practical reasons for bringing aboard a person of that caliber and direction and capability and everything are really, super and really perfect for the time and the period where we are right now. I'll go over just briefly a little bit about what the role is looking to shape up to be and what we hope it to be and why it is coming along at almost the perfect time. So first of all, the idea is everybody knows that I'm a little stretched thin. I tend to do an awful lot of different things, and maybe I don't do them all very well. I do some things pretty good, and some things are just, competent we get past. The good news now is that I think being able to sort of split the roles up and split the workload up and so forth will allow, me to kind of focus more on some of the things that I should be focusing on. And things like marketing and sales and really getting out there and trying to rep and grow the storage on the network is really a big portfolio item for me now. And to really effectuate that, we really need to do some things on the back end with the coding and development and operations and telemetry and databasing and all the stuff that we currently do internally with engineering. One of the things that has been pretty highlighted over the past is that we do a pretty good job of development and coding, and we do a pretty decent job of releasing. In that, when I say that, what I mean is we've released pretty good code that doesn't really crash an awful lot and doesn't really cause a lot of, oddball challenges. And we haven't had to go back and, do a lot of do-overs. There's been some things that we've released that have been minor, but at the end of the day, I think we've had a pretty good record of releasing good software. And I think internally we've got good hygiene. We do a pretty good job of making sure that the code is clean and does a good, proper test, but at the end of the day, it's not fast. It's slow. We take a long time. We take our time to do things to get them done right. And to move forward, we're going to need to increase that speed of development, speed of release, and speed of across the platform. And we've got an awful lot of pieces. That's the other really interesting sort of part about how this thing has evolved. Originally we said, well, we'll just drop a layer 2 on this thing, which will be a, sort of an S3 overlay on top of an already developed protocol. Well, we learned almost immediately we had to throw the protocol kind of out and start sort of over because it was all hackathon, really, ragged code that really didn't work. So we started there, and then we had to do a bunch of other things, and then we had to really sort of develop this relayer from scratch, from the ground up. And by the time we're done, we've got a ton of different repos. And then we built the Examiner on top, and that whole platform was supervisor and super admin, and the relayer applications. And So we've got a pretty involved stack with a lot of different, offshoots and directions and so forth, and different, developers and developer types working on all the stuff. So we can't really continue on the way we were, operating, because what'll end up happening now is people will miss things. We'll start shipping without, proper testing. We'll ship bad code. We'll ship, unclean code. We'll not end up shipping quality. And so the first role that Bob was tasked with when he came in was to sort of continue and complete this movement over in our CI/CD evolution, and we're deep in that process now, and we'll continue on that way. We've got from the former guy who we had tasked to work with us on that, a pretty good head start on setting up Kubernetes. Kubernetes is an orchestration configuration which allows us to tie all our things together. One of the things that sort of happened, magically, or because it just needed to happen, is as we started building out all these applications, they all started becoming Dockerized, and as they all got containerized, now we recognize that we really need a full-blown orchestration underneath it all in order to do it correctly. And so that's the part that we're kind of in. You guys don't really see any of this right now, but it's a big Herculean effort that's going on behind the scenes. So I know sometimes it doesn't always look like we're doing, all that much, but a lot of stuff is happening sort of under the waves. And that stuff is what allows the stuff to happen, which is really, the stuff that people see and that you'll be using. I will say that there's also another big effort going on right now to essentially set up this licensing strategy. We have a big effort going on with databasing, which I'll get into, but that also is part of the portfolio. And so for a period of time, I'll continue to function in somewhat of a role of illuminating and steering and providing, input and feedback and reasons why something can or can't or should or shouldn't happen. Maybe mostly an educational kind of a functionality, and then over time, slowly, I'll begin to disengage from that and become more product management oriented, and then marketing and sales oriented, and so forth. So that's the deal. We announced it here first for you guys because you guys are our most, EB or ES, I guess, is the acronym that we use internally, folks. And so I want to always make sure that you're taken care of before everybody else. Tomorrow we'll issue a formal press release on it if I can figure out how to do that thing. Been a long time since I did marketing and sales, so I got to get back in that saddle. And then we'll see where we end up. We've told the stakeholders, and I think it's a really powerful day, and I think it's a really important day for the project. And I think going forward, you guys are going to really see the benefits from it and be pretty happy about how it all turns out. I think it's the first of many onboards to come that will be high profile. I think it's the first step sort of out of the basement and into the light, where people will start to say, wait, who are these guys again? Never heard of them. What's their story? And really start to dig in and check us out and so forth. Again, something that's come up over the last couple of days, again, over and over and again. This is not the place where people are going to find us and learn about us. They may come here, and if they do, they're going to come and find a very loose, free-flowing, very open format where transparency sort of rules, and we do the work that we need to get done. But this is not where we're going to be engaging customers. This is not where we're going to be out there, marketing to people. This is not how we're going to be doing our business. Our business is going to be traditional. It's going to be, out there in normal channels. We're going to be building training videos and, white papers and case studies, and we're going to be setting up, sales calls and those kinds of things. And ultimately, those will all not take place in this Discord, or if they do, they'll happen in private rooms. And ultimately, I don't expect that the customers or the clients or any of those people to really care one way or the other about what goes on in this Discord. Not that anything goes on in the Discord that I'm embarrassed by or shy about or anything. I don't care. Frankly, we are who we are, warts and all. Take it or leave it. I don't really care. But at the end of the day, that's come up a little bit, and I just think it's a nothing burger. So at the end of the day, we are now in that process of starting to become more outward facing. The new website got stood up. It needs a lot of help. We'll move into that, get that done. Henry's doing a lot of work in that direction, and like I said, I think it's just going to be a really good sort of time frame for the project, and I think we'll all look back on this period and say, geez, that's when things really started to change. Which is good news, by the way, since apparently crypto and every other market is headed for a deep bear market, if depending on who you listen to. I don't agree, by the way, but there seems to be a real good, attempt out there to walk all things down. And the nice thing I think we're going to show is that we are in a category different from everybody else. We've been pretty proud of that the whole time. Unfortunately, what that meant is while everybody else was going gangbusters, we kind of had to sit on the sidelines and watch because we're quote unquote different from everybody else. Well, I kind of feel like now that things are going to go the other direction and NFTs are all going to become worthless and, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if all NFTs are going to become worthless, but now that a lot of the population of them are, and other kinds of crypto nonsense is going to really be revealed as trash, I think we're going to ultimately use this time to show up as being something real. And people will say, that's kind of the thing you want to be in during a bear market, isn't it? Something with a real product and a real need and, a real use case that isn't driven just by narratives and Twitter influencers and traders who saying, squiggly lines say that this is going up or whatever, that's kind of the thing. So that's a real positive, I think, for us. And I think you should see that over coming weeks, months, and maybe even years, depending on who you listen to. Again, I don't think we're headed for a deep bear market myself. I think we're actually going to come out of this inflation thing pretty quickly, but that's just my own opinion. All right, so let's go ahead and get into the call and talk a little bit about the stuff that's going on. So Examiner Batch 2 started shipping, and let's just address the big elephant in the room right out of the gate. Give me about 6 seconds. I'll be right back. Might have been 7. The deal is that people are showing up every day and saying this consistent refrain. Has anybody noticed that their data stopped flowing, or my data isn't getting any bigger, or blah blah blah? I can't get more data, or is it broken? Is it dead? Is my thing set up correctly? Who do I see about that? Right? And you know what? There's nobody to see about it. It's exactly what's going on right now. The chart was going up on all internal, us paying for data and just, guys testing and whatever. And, now we're kind of transitioning. Well, the question that comes up out of that is, well, why are you starting an Examiner Batch 2 if, we're not even filled up on Batch 1 yet? Well, when did you think we were going to get filled up on Batch 1, by the way? Did you think that was going to happen in the first 2 months? Did somebody on YouTube convince you of that? Because if they did, you weren't paying attention and you weren't asking the right questions. And if you still feel that way, you haven't gotten the right understanding yet, and you need to get it. I'm fully convinced that in, several years, when every Examiner owner looks back and does a simple math calculation, they're going to have paid for their unit several times over. They're going to make a lot of money off the unit, but it isn't going to be a situation where you're going to load the thing up 64 terabytes in the first 2 months and then just ride. That isn't how it works, and it's never been the way we presented it as working. The way we presented it as working is that you would buy this thing, we would pay you out rebates heavily in the first year to keep you online in that first year, to keep you interested, to keep you happy, to keep you, with some coin revenue coming in. And then we even did some things with this batch that we put some bonus money out there. We screwed around some of the, the payout timing so you could do better. All in service to making sure that these units actually ROI very quickly. And they will. They're going to. The guys on the very first batches back in June and July of 2021, they're about to come up on their rebate number 4. And some of those guys are sitting on multiple terabytes of storage But none of them are like 64 terabytes. How could they be? Why would they be? They're not. And yet, every one of them has already made a ton of money, right? So, it's math. It's magic. I don't know. Figure it out. Understand the story. If you don't understand it, maybe it's time to move on. I don't know. But you'll have to figure that out. That's why we're selling another batch. Another batch is twofold. A, continue to fund this great development that we're doing. We're doing a ton of development work. We've got to keep going. We've got to smash it right now. We've got to be putting the hammer down, not slowing up and trying to go out and sell storage and bailing out on what we've got going. We've got to increase the speed, the velocity, the power, everything. That's part of this deal, and the network, and that's really the sort of core understanding. While 80 petabytes may seem really cool to all of us, and it's big, and it's really a sort of a powerful scenario, it puts us at number 2 in the crypto world. It's really a drop in the bucket in the real world, and it's just not, something that's going to excite very many people. To excite people in the real world, we're going to have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of petabytes. And yeah, you're going to start out with all of them empty. That's how it works. And then we go out and we start showing that this works. We start advertising, doing marketing. We continue to do like trade shows. We do, white papering and case studies. We do, webinars. We do sales direct with partnering. We do all of it. And as we do that, then ultimately the storage will, start to flow. And as the network starts to fill up, then you'll start to, see some of those payouts that you've been looking for. And that's really all part and parcel about us continuing to be able to be around in order to service the software and pay for some of that stuff. As I said, we always have about 3 months of runway, and selling this next batch of X miners is about 50% keeping runway extended, as well as 50% for sales and marketing. I guess that's kind of how I would break it down when it's all said and done. But that's kind of the deal. What I'm doing specifically right now is everything in my power to make sure that it doesn't turn into a December type sale, and that we're doing it slow and measured. We're releasing a very small number of names at a time, but we will get through all of the names. So if you want one, just stick around and keep your eye on your email, and you will get that ability to do it. And yes, we are allowing people to buy multiples, and people are taking advantage of that opportunity at this point. See, there are 2 kinds of people in crypto. And you have to determine, in your own ride or die posture, which one you are. There are people that buy the blood, and there are people that buy tops. And at the end of the day, right now is when you should be buying stuff. And I'm not even saying just our stuff. I'm saying right now is when you buy stuff. Now is when you don't pull in your horns. Now is not when you get all conservative and say, oh, I read somewhere that it's going to drop even another 40% or another 80% or another 100%. Pretty soon we're all going to have to owe money to Satoshi because it's going to drop into the negatives. And then we're going to have to, essentially be slaves. Well, you're already slaves. So, everybody's a slave to something in this world. And right now, when the coins are down is when you buy. Don't buy when the coins are at the top. Now, when the Examiners first started selling in the batch 1, I wouldn't say that was the top because we weren't actually all that high, although our coin price did actually jump up a little bit, during that process. But everybody piled in like, oh my God, this is the next thing. I've got to figure out, I've got to get in here, I've got to do it. And I would guess about 60% of the people that bought Examiners and for batch 1 truly understood what they were buying. The other 40% have learned the hard way. And at the end of the day, it's okay because you're all going to make a lot of money. You just are. But you have to buy at the right point. And right now is the right point. You're early. The prices are low. The coin prices are so low, you're getting paid out in a lot of coins. There you go. So that's Examiner batch 2. I would guess that there will probably be somewhere between 800 and 1,000 sold this go round. One of the things that's very clear, and this is something that you should think about very clearly, I told you in the beginning that the way this thing was all working is with incentives payments over top, really helping us to build this network out before we really got out there and became, something substantial. And I said the incentives would continue on no matter what, but at the end of the day, they're really valuable right now because they build the network. Well, one of the incentives is the rebates we apply on these Examiner units and the software we're selling. And as it turns out right now, if we go through the entirety of batch 2 and write it out to 1,000 units, we will fully deplete the entirety of our cold wallets. I mean, think about that for a second. We started out with about 7 million coins a couple of years ago. And I'm saying that if by next year we do 2,000 Xminer sales in total, we will have completely emptied those wallets. Well, what do you mean, Faust? Where are you going to empty them to? I don't understand what's going on. You're getting them. You're getting them. When I tell you every month that you got 86,000 coins, you are getting the coins. When I pay the rebates out, well, I don't pay it because it's automatic, but when the rebates get paid out on 6 months and 9 months and 12 months, you are getting those coins. That's what that wallet is all about. That's what that treasury is all about. So, the situation is we have a number right now that we're looking at on how big the network can grow on that wallet. And, it's not as big as I'd like it to be. I'd love to see it a lot larger, but at this coin price, that's what looks like is going to happen. Now, if you really wanted me to tell you what I think is going to happen in 2023 with coin price, I don't think it's going to be where it is right now in 2023. God forbid it doesn't drop back down to 2 cents a coin. I mean, I guess it could. And if it does, we're all going to have to really pull in our horns and then start to really think hard about how we get funded. But we will, because that's all we've ever done. But I don't think that's what's coming. I think you don't have to be a rocket scientist to look at the order book on the exchanges and see that the number of coins that are out there just keeps dwindling further and further and further, slowly but surely. And the emission just keeps concluding and getting us up to that flat part of the inflation curve. And it's very, very much a tightening situation. And as the thing gets tightened up all the way, and when it uncoils, it's going to likely result in some sort of a big move. And you can make your own determination about what that means and where it goes. But when it does finally get that move out of the way and we ascend and take our rightful place next to our fair competition, because we've sure as fuck developed enough software to stand shoulder to shoulder with all the other guys in our space. We sure have developed a large enough network and a committed enough user base and a large enough community to fit right in against Storage and Saya and all these other ones. Saya got a coin delisted or a trading pair delisted today. So, if we're not worth 120, 150 million by next year, then something's gone horribly wrong. And, we'll just have to see what happens by then. But if that does happen, and the coin price does actually assume, at least some reasonable value and not down in this crazy, stupid value, then that cold wallet won't pay out quite as much as fast, and it will allow us to build an even bigger network. And I think that would be good, because if it does that, then we end up in a place where we can get to the goals we want to get to faster. We can onboard bigger customers. We can onboard, more enterprise type grade customers and so forth. So it's a really big point about the flywheel that I don't think a lot of people understand. But once you do get it, that coin price, that incentives, the cold wallets, the provider earnings, all of it is a big, giant circular flywheel. And there's no, weird sort of, diametric kinds of, counterweights to it. You take like I'll just pick on the guy because he's always had a fun time with it. But, you take like any of the Tron stuff, and somewhere along the line, there's a giant wallet that's going to get dumped on your head. That doesn't exist here. We don't have that. The giant wallets we have, we're like hoarding. We're trying to hold back. And we can't, because we've committed to giving the money to you, right? We're giving it all to you. Okay, yeah, that just sounded like Bane right there, but we do give it back to the people. So, that's what's going on right there. And the flywheel does actually work on this project, which is something a lot of projects talk about, but then ultimately when the shit hits the fan, you realize the flywheel didn't exist at all, and it was really just a place for founders to dump on plebs, and it always ends the same way. We're not going to end that way. We're going to go off and sell cloud storage to businesses. All right, so that's that. Xminer software, we did release version 1 of the UI, so I think we're going to call that a day on, what's in there. Remote access is not yet in there. That will come in a 1.1 or something like that very shortly down the road. but what's in there is pretty good, and the look and feels good on it, and it does essentially show you what you're going to get as a full provider. Just have somebody show you an examiner if you don't know what it looks like, and you'll get an idea of what the full version looks like for the providers that are out there. The first step in that licensing conversation is we need to tie pub keys to license keys, and then that ultimately gets tied to an account that you can monitor so that you can go in and set up multiple providers against a single account and have them all operating under your own thing. The deal there is that as we started working on that more deeply and really getting it all screwed together, we realized it was actually a pretty good sized infrastructure project on the back end of our project. So one of the things that we have is we have multiple databases that exist right now, but they don't all talk to each other very well. They do communicate a little bit, but not perfectly. And in some cases, we have data that are going into databases that are not really appropriate for where they should be going. So we've been in the process of essentially tearing that down and diagramming out the way the flows need to be. The network has been reconfigured in many ways. We have new servers and new providers and so forth for the stuff we're doing. And ultimately what's going on right there is we're going to have to redo the workflows between the three databases. That's not going to take very long. We have people working on it right now, and as they get through that, that will open up immediately the capability for you to key cloak into our deal and then tie a pub key directly to a license key. So I think we're still on track to deliver that by June 30th without too much issue. And then that will, give you authority and power and credit to ensure that you're going to continue to gain data on the network from the corporation. The full version of the software, I'm hoping we're going to hit June 30th on a version of it. It's possible it slips a little bit into July, but I'm really hoping it doesn't. I'm hoping that we are able to deliver it. We do have the full version, and most of the work that's being done is just the port. The real hard part about doing the port is that we have to build for, for instance, all the Windows providers. And remember, if you're a Windows provider, let's say you got a bunch of 18 terabyte drives. Well, there's a pretty good chance that we're looking at 8 or 9 folders on those drives because of the goofiness and the way SIA actually zeroed out the NTFS file system, right? So that's going to be an issue in terms of converting it over because all of the software releases that we do are going to be Linux based. They may end up being Dockerized containers on your Windows setup. It's not necessarily that you're going to have to be running a Linux workstation, although if you do, it's going to be probably a smoother experience. But at the end of the day, that's the porting work that we have to do to make this whole thing happen. So it's a task, but I think it's one we can kind of get through and we will. So let me talk about 2 things on the back end that are tied to that are really critical for you guys. So the first one is that, we've had some major sprints that our core engineers have been working on, but one by one, I've kind of kicked them all to the curb. They're important things, no doubt, like file deletions. Right now, what happens if somebody deletes data from the network? It doesn't actually delete. Now, that's okay. It doesn't matter to the customer because at the end of the day, it shows as deleted for them. They can't access it anymore. But somebody has to continue paying for that data to the end of the contract. And guess who that is? Us. And we pay you. So, I'm not saying you should be applauding deletions not being in there, but at the end of the day, it got pushed back in terms of priority because we're willing to absorb that cost right now in order to get these other priorities done first. Another one was active repairs, although even though I keep sort of saying that's been delayed, we do have one developer who's pretty good, and she's actually been cranking through it. And I have a feeling that we're probably going to have a fully working version of active repairs before I actually thought that we would. So that's something that's actually, coming along, even though it did kind of lose a little bit of the priority list. And what did these things lose priority to? Well, so to establish this process that we built where we can indemnify you and where we can ensure that you're not onboarding illegalities and, child trafficking and, all sorts of other nonsense that you don't want to have on your rigs, we're going to have to do some stuff. And one of the things we're going to have to do is we've got to make it so that only the providers who have licensed installations get contracts with our central contractor, with the corporation. And that's a big one, because at the end of the day, that's, the first step in saying, okay, you are validated. I paid the money, so I should have privileges above and beyond people that just show up and stand up a pie with no license or whatever. And the way that works is we will not contract with them. We will only contract with you guys. So what I think is going to happen here on June 30th, or whenever we, allow that to be released, what will end up happening is we'll see who's just been here gaming the network, and we'll see who's here for real. So I've been saying that the network's sticky at 4,300 providers, and while it kind of is, I got a feeling that when we hit June 30th and that demarc shows up and says, okay, we're no longer doing renewals with people who are non-licensed, well, first of all, we're going to get a rush of license purchases. And then second of all, we're going to see that network begin to, drop a little bit. The good news is that we aren't going to lose a lot of, terabytes. We'll lose numbers on the provider side more than we'll lose the terabytes on the network, because the examiners are about 50% of the capacity of the network. And so then if you take the rest of the, DIYers and you chop down whatever who's going to leave, it's not going to turn out to be that big of a capacity hit, but it will probably be a pretty good number of actual providers. Maybe we go from 43 down to 35 or 32 or something like that. But that's not a bad thing. That's a good thing for you guys. That means you guys are going to make more money. You will make more per installation and so forth going forward. So it's not necessarily a bad thing, and it really does solidify the network around the ESs versus the WBs. And you guys are all ESs, otherwise you wouldn't be here listening to my stupid voice. So there you go. And so we're thinking pretty much that sprint will be done by the end of the month. And then there's another piece that the core engineers are working on that's tied to this as well, which will start off being one way, and then it'll transition into being the rest of the way. And what that is we also have this issue where right now, if you upload data on our contracts to a 4-drive or a 2-drive or whatever drive rig, it just gets done randomly to individual folders. But it gets done in a way that one contract is spread out across however many folders you have. So it's like RAID 0 on steroids in some ways. It's weird, but it isn't necessary. And ultimately, what we're going to end up doing is we will set it up so that every folder you set up will get a contract. That doesn't encourage you to set up 100 folders, because getting more contracts is not going to be the way to get more data. If we see multiple folders are tied to the same instance, we're still just going to give it the same amount of data spread out over whatever. But the benefit is that one folder per contract allows us then to set up a little more durability. That means if a drive fails and the contract gets horked up on that one drive, it won't turn around and mess up anything else, the storage that's on the other drives. And right now, that's a problem. It is a problem. It doesn't happen very often because drives are very robust these days. But look, as we go forward and start really putting a lot of stress on the network, it will begin to happen more and more. So we're addressing that in this update. And then the last thing is setting up a switch to allow you to turn off, other kinds of community data and outside data to your providers, because we won't make a contract with you also if you're storing community data. And that's just a PR thing, by the way. It's really a stupid thing, but it's at the end of the day, we do not want to be having the conversation with law enforcement that they come in and say, hey, there's all this illegality stuff on your, providers. And look, you've got a John Deere customer here who's uploaded a bunch of stuff right next to a bunch of the child porn. How do you explain yourself? And we'd have to stand up and say, it's not us. I mean, it's a permissionless network. Anybody can upload anything they want. Well, that's not going to fly. They're going to find ways to insert themselves into the choke points, and they will choke it off. So we need a way for you to actually say, no, we don't want that data. The only data we want is the good data that you are guaranteeing and indemnifying there's a TOS behind for the customer, and the customer gets warned and thrown off if they violate the TOS, and that's the deal. So there's those three things that got to get done by the core engineers by the end of the month, and they're working on that very diligently. Okay. Next piece of the puzzle. So one of the things you guys have probably been seeing if you've been watching the forum at all. Look, when we went to Las Vegas, we had a pretty good, solid working configuration. The demo went really well. But, as trade shows go, there was a little bit of sort of Flintstoning going on, which is a term that, the car did run, but it was powered by feet underneath. And in this case, some of the things that the relayer did were sort of manually kind of set up and configured, and we need to kind of more automate that. But we've been having a bit of a challenge getting people to come in and really, trial the thing in any kind of legitimate way. And we can make a lot of, arguments about why that is, but at the end of the day, we just haven't really got the kinds of trial test work on the network that we really needed. And so now what we're doing is we're opening the relayer up to all of you to come in and try it out. And you can try it out for real. You can try it out for your own companies or for companies that you work for. You can try it out just for fun, just to see how it works. You can try it out thinking you're going to load a bunch of data up to your own provider. Won't work that way, but you can try it out for any reason you want, as long as you provide us a little bit of feedback on how it's working, and we're giving you 5 terabytes for the next 30 days to do it. We've run into a number of things that we're shaking out. We're calling this sort of a, smoke test on steroids. And once we kind of get past this next 30 days, I feel like we'll be in great shape to go out there and really sort of start marketing to, social channels, and really sort of start putting advertising out there in ways to kind of get us started, where we actually begin to draw people into the network. But I think we have to get past these 30 days of just weird wrinkles and, stupid stuff that we've kind of missed. And it's shaping up really good, but there's still some things. And then even just the use case. Because right now, when you work on a relayer and you get it as a customer, there's just so much. It's overwhelming. You just host selection alone. It's like, so wait, I got to select all these providers like this manually. This is awesome. You can do this, but I don't want to have to do this every time. And some people will want that granularity, and we'll add even more. We'll add more capability, even right down to the, single geo IP location. But for now, it's a little too complicated and a little too much. And so one of the things we know we need to add on to the user interface is a little bit more of the good, better, best type thing, where the customer just has to choose, well, give me something that's good but not too expensive. Give me something that's highly durable, I'll pay a little bit more for. Give me something that's ultra performant. Give me something that's just scattered everywhere and gives me really high redundancy. We'll make those kinds of easy switches for them, so they don't have to go in and figure it out on their own. But for now, you can go in there and figure it out on your own. But yeah, that's UI work that we'll be doing over the next 30, 60, 90 days. But definitely, if you get a chance and you want to try it and you're willing to put in some effort on it to try the relayer out, we do have the Windows version up, and I think we launched and got the Linux version up there now. So doesn't matter what platform you're on, except for Mac, you can do it in one of those two and get it off the ground. What it does also point to, and I'm in the process now of starting this work, we're going to be investigating and setting up all of the UI in such a way to determine what the best potential hardware solution is that we can offer. And, once we kind of work through that, we'll wrap up that install, and then you'll see the relayer 1U start to show up on the Examiner website, where you can buy that. Probably more likely on, I guess, the XNet Services website, but you'll see that become available, and people will be able to buy that unit soon. And pretty soon, the storage and storage related stuff will start to take over from the storage provider and provider related stuff. The license sales, for instance, will slow significantly after, let's say July, until we kind of get into that next big, kind of scale upgrade. And I don't know when that's coming. Could be a year from now. Who knows? But so the provider, funding of the project is kind of first stage, and now we're moving on to the second stage of the rocket, which will be to transition over to the storage customers. And those people will end up, starting to fund the project the way they're supposed to. So that's the situation there with the relayer. Okay, so that's all covered. Just look at my notes here real quick. Couple of seconds. Yep, that's pretty much all the information that I wanted to impart this week. So I'm going to open it up for questions early this week. Well, not early, but what's supposed to be the normal time, and it's just early for us. And then we'll kind of go from there. We'll start with J4N.
Yeah, it's I'm living in Germany, and I'm really not familiar with data from someone else because uh, actually the DSG4 VO from the EU is kind of blocking things, and I'm not happy actually right now that I'm having the data from not SCP Corp. Well, what is this about?
Well, I know they brew a strong beer in Germany, so I'll start by saying I wish I was there to join you with that. And look, here's the deal. We have a stakeholder in our project right now who has a cloud services company up in Denmark. And I expect that he's going to provide us a really good template about how MSPs can actually use this product and really sell storage on a geo IP segmented way. And what we're going to do, we've talked to him directly about ways that we need to tweak the UI of the relayer to make it very easy for them to stay within their, borders, to stay within the compliance guidelines of the EU. And I think actually the way it looks right now, there's a pretty good chance that we will see more data going into EU providers in the first 2 quarters than we do see coming into North America. And that's kind of counterintuitive since North America almost always gets the sort of the first dibs, but I don't think that's the case here. I think EU is going to actually happen faster and with more force than we see in the other parts of the world. And we know for a fact we've got some partners there that are already standing up the infrastructure to go out and get their customers onboarded onto the network. So is it going to happen overnight? No. But is it going to happen pretty quickly? I would say yes. I would say what's going to happen is you're going to wait a few weeks and keep waiting. You're going to keep coming in and complaining about you're not getting data and complaining you're not getting data until all of a sudden you just start getting data. And then you stop complaining and say, okay, yeah, well, that's cool, and it's not a squeaky wheel gets the grease around here, by the way. It's not like,
No, it's not gonna happen like this, especially in Germany.
Why?
Because they're concerned about their data. It's not gonna happen like in the US.
But they're concerned about their data because why? Security? Because of durability?
Yes,
because of what?
security, exactly. And the DSGVO.
Right, but I understand that. But our network will pass the security audits because our network is more secure than a standard, centralized data center environment. As far as needing to keep the providers within the confines of the EU, we've got that covered.
Yeah, exactly. And I trust you. I trust you. But I don't know if the EU and all over the European governments trust you. If that happened, it would be a really huge achievement.
Yeah, but think about that for a second, what you're saying. if ultimately they become so rigid that nobody can qualify for holding data for EU businesses, where are EU businesses going to store their data? They need to store it somewhere. They need to store it on EU-based data centers. Well, I know where there's a really good EU-based data center. I can look at my map and I can see all across Europe that we have a ton of really good, solid, performant providers. If that's not exactly who the law is written to service, then I don't know what it is written for. If it's written to serve, it certainly isn't written to service Amazon. It's not written to service Microsoft. Those are two United States-based companies, you know? So might as well give the money to people that are in the EU. Who's in the EU? You are.
Faust, you're not used to you're you're not used to I don't know what European countries handle it, but especially in the German in the German GSG for VO, it's pretty ridiculous. Pretty ridiculous. You can't store something like um, a patient's data on a American server.
I understand that. And in our case, you're not going to have to. You can store everything on European based servers. Everything in our situation doesn't come out of America. When you stand up a relayer, that relayer lives, let's say Bear Aspirin showed up tomorrow and said, we want to do this. The relayer would be running in Hamburg, right? The relayer would be running there. The data would never leave their servers onto our servers. It stays on their server until it's uploaded onto the providers that they choose. And they're going to choose a compliant provider set. And a compliant provider set probably looks like we want most of this in Germany because we're a German corporation and we want to reward our people that are in our neighborhood. And when they upload all their stuff into German providers from the German-based relayer, you cannot tell me that we are not the most compliant provider in that area, you know? So I just don't see it being a problem. I think we're going to have a data protection officer who can work us all the way through this. We're going to have to work with consultants to begin with to kind of make sure that we hit the compliance regimes really well early on. But at the end of the day, I don't think it's going to be as big an issue as you're suggesting. Look, I got to move on and take some other questions.
Yeah, but first, I'm sorry to piss you off. Some kind of.
You're not pissing me off.
The German system is some kind of pretty messy, and if you want to get the data, they have to be pretty sure. But I don't care. I'm out of it.
Well, just keep your provider up and keep it performant, and I guarantee that by this time next year, we will show that we can deliver. So, thanks. I'm going to call somebody else. SG. What are you drinking today, SG? He's trying to find the button on his mic to unmute, and he's probably seeing two buttons.
Oh, sorry, I was having a conversation with you, talking to myself. Sorry, I'm drinking water, not the holy kind. Can you hear me?
We can.
Excellent, cool. All right, just a quick one. I know it's not part of the active incentives yet, but I jumped the gun and completely wamped up my internet. So basically, I'm getting 750 megabytes to my house, but I want to know because it's not it doesn't work on Wi-Fi, but only wired. Obviously, it's wired in. So I want to know: is it worth keeping that package, or should I drop it down to like 500? Because is there a way to check on the Examiner to see how fast the speed actually comes to straight to the box? Does that make sense?
Yeah, truth be told, I think performance is probably going to be the first next big incentive that we add in there. You know, continuous time and service, we don't have to do anything with that right away. And in fact, you know, there's probably good, valid reasons not to do it. We have historical data. We can go back and say, this guy's been here for 3 years, you know, or this guy's been here for 18 months. So the continuous time and service will come, but probably it'll be second or third in line. Performance is definitely one, though, because one of the things that happens when you start playing around with the relayer and uploading data, you start really trying to performance tune quickly. And that's, you know, part and parcel of what we're doing right now when we need to tweak the UI so that when we deliver it, it kind of is set up for easy performance tuning, whereas right now it's very manual. But once they start, you know, trying to performance tune against the network, you know, it's just the next step is, well, okay, but, you know, maybe I need to actually exclude some of these slower performing providers and start really focusing on the higher performing guys. And I think we're going to want to support that early on because we want to, you know, showcase the network the best we possibly can. And I'm not saying we will like, orphan people that have 35 megabit uploads because that's going to be a pretty large percentage of the population. But if somebody shows up like you with 750, you know, synchronous, I think there's really valid reasons for us to really highlight inside the relayers that you are a, you know, favorable provider, that you're someone you definitely want to have in the mix. And I think that, you know, when we build those good, better, best profiles, there's a profile that you're always going to show up in the best. But then you'll probably show up in the other two, whereas some people might only show up in the good, or some might show up in the good or better. Again, the customers are going to have to make determinations, and we're going to have to make pricing decisions about, do we charge up for people that want to just go all performance, or do we, you know, find a way to make it a little bit more bespoke, you know, when somebody wants to cherry pick the network essentially. And, you know, that's a thing. So performance is big. I think you can't have enough of it. And I think if you spend a little money for it right now and it doesn't cost you all that much to really, you know, hurt your wallet, you know, maybe keep it in line and see how things shake out. Give it a quarter, 2 quarters if you can. You know, if it's challenging, then, you know, maybe take it down, but always plan to bring it back.
Yeah, cool. I did think that was the case, but yeah, no, I'll definitely keep it. Thanks for that. One last thing. It's a question I've asked you before, but I think it's important that we're a community, so I think it's important that we all should know. It's about, obviously, we haven't got remote access just yet, so the coins are tied up to your wallet that is on your home system. So whenever, say you're out and then the coin hockey sticks, as you like to say, how are people going to be able to take advantage of that? Because I know you said before about there being loads of confirmations needed. You've answered that question to me personally in the Discord, but I thought it was just something important that the community should know. If that makes sense.
Well, I've never been the person to tell people that they should hodl everything and never sell. I know too many people that went all the way through the entirety of the last bear cycle, never selling any of their altcoins, and ultimately watching F go from, you know, it was 1,500 in the original, I think, 2017 cycle, and then it went all the way down to $80. And it was 42 or 45 or whatever it ended up getting up to this cycle. And who knows how low it's going to go when it finally hits the final capitulative bottom. But it's not going to stop where it is right now. I think we all kind of understand that. So that kind of happens. So I've never been somebody to say, you know, hodl everything and just keep it all locked and cold and don't ever worry. What I always believe, and I think Extra Bull came in with a really good graphic about this, you should always be prepared to deal off, you know, maybe 10% of your coins upon big giant fly-ups. you should set them into that kind of place and leave them ready to be sold, right? They should be in the book right now, because you don't know. It could happen tomorrow. A whale could show up with 2 Bitcoins and buy out the whole book. That's how crazy it is right now. So the beauty of that is, if your strategy is to do that and you put those big, high, really fantasy type sells in for 10% of your coins, not, anything more, then you're going to find out that that's all you ever need to sell. And you can keep continuing to hodl the other 90% through cycle in and cycle out until ultimately at some point you just are able to just say, hey, I just realized I have fuck you money. How'd that happen? And then if at that point you decide you want to cash in everything, then you can. But I would say keep some coins on the exchange at all time. It actually will help, because it will provide enough liquidity to show exactly how many coins are actually out there that are going to get sold in the case of a large run up. All right, the risk there is that you have to take the trade-off that keeping your coins on an exchange exposes you to some risk. There is every possibility that if you keep 10% of your coins on South Exchange, that those 2 guys running that exchange are going to run away with your money. There's almost every possibility that that's going to happen at some point. I don't think it's imminent. I don't hope it's going to happen, because they seem to be really stand-up people and they seem to be running a reasonably tight exchange, and there's just really not enough money in it for them to sort of, pull a rug. But again, I've seen a lot of shit in this the time I've been in crypto, so there is a chance you're going to lose your money if you keep it on the exchange like that. The other thing you could do is keep it in a hot wallet. The web wallet is really working good for this, and just accept that you're going to have a high number of commits, or lost the word for whatever reason, but you're going to have confirmations before it can be transferred. But look, any run that goes up and then comes back down in 20 confirmations wasn't a real run. I mean, that's just a bullshit spike. And if it does do that, you got plenty of time to get the coins in there in order to be able to wait and take advantage of the retrace and the reclaim. So I don't know. I mean, you're asking me for trading advice, and I actually gave it to you. And to be frank about it, I shouldn't. And I don't really care what y'all do with your coins, but if it were me, that's how I would do it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you go to. I was just saying that as we're a community, I thought it was really good advice. I know you're not a financial advisor, but I thought it was something that helped me, and I thought it's something that should be shared with other people if they wish or wish not to take it. Thanks for that.
Cool. Song. Sing us a song. You're the singer.
Lovely, found the button. So yeah, I've got a few questions. So really loving the new UI version as well. If you haven't seen that, check it out. But yeah, so the limitations, I think I saw something in relation to the number of miners being sold will be limited. Is that in terms of is the reason behind that, is that because you would like a certain number of storage to start off with, or do you envision more storage to come from other places? And also, what is the type of platform that you're going to create to allow organizations and individuals to be able to sign up, or is it mainly direct customers and providers you're aiming for? So something similar to Amazon, AWS, they have like a website where if you want to be able to carry out or store the storage, etc. Is it going to be something similar to that for customers and consumers, generally speaking? And then last question, I've got it all running right now, but what are kind of your expected data inputs for the next 12 months? So I think at the moment we've got about 70 petabytes. Are you expecting storage at the moment? Sorry, should I say? So are you expecting incoming storage kind of from organizations to be around, 1 petabyte, or is it going to be about 50? What's your expectation?
Okay, I'll take that last one first. I don't have an expectation at this point. I seriously don't. I don't have an internal personal expectation. I really don't. I'm not lying. I'm being completely, frankly honest. But it ties in directly to your second question. Your second question is, how are we planning to sell this thing, and what is the ultimate sort of, sale look like? And the sale looks like this. One of the things that I think everybody needs to sort of, step back and totally appreciate here is what the relayer is. And look, I've said this several times. This whole thing is based off this renter host protocol, which, as a foundational idea was really good. The implementation on the original project that did it was really bad. And ultimately they discarded it in a lot of ways and moved on. We didn't. We decided to go ahead and build up on it. We built it out and made it work. But the thing that we did was we realized the original vision of a distributed renter on the customer side. And what's a distributed renter? So right now, if you go on to any of the other crypto networks and you start trying to upload data or storage or do whatever, you upload and then you have access to your data and you can go and do stuff with it. But the only way you can give access to others to see your data or use your data or edit your data or download or do all that, you just have to give them public links. They can be private, but I mean, they're just links and they aren't actually working off the same data set as you are. And that's what the distributed renter, the relayer, does. The relayer is this tool which allows multiple people in 100 seats in a single organization to all access the same data. Jim in accounting uploads a spreadsheet. June down in engineering can download and revise it and re-upload it. And they all work off of the same consistent metadata, which is the same data set. That is gigantic because what that does is it opens up business use. Now, does this thing scale to enterprise? Yes, it absolutely does. But are we going to tackle enterprise right out of the gate? No. We're going after SME. We're going after business. We're going after archival. So we're kind of going after the low-hanging fruit. We're saying, look, we'll accept some lower profitability to get people to come in with, simple archive stuff, stuff that's not really high stakes, but business-based archival. Companies with 30, 50, 100 seats, not giant enterprise with 10,000 seats or 50,000 seats or whatever quite yet. But the companies that, everybody has to do backups of their network. Everybody has to back up storage and data, from some kind of formation, whether it's graphics or website stuff or whether it's internal, documents or, CAD drawings or, audio or video or whatever. They all have this stuff that they have to back up, and they have to back up workstations and they have to back up servers. And all of that stuff is what will get backed up onto our network out of the gate from businesses on the relayer once we turn it loose on the world. Once we turn it loose on the world and people really understand that we are a different animal than the other guys, that we actually have something that does provide an AWS similar experience, except you never don't own your data. You always own your data. It never gets, delivered to Jeff Bezos to inspect first before it gets, into his data center. We don't do that. It doesn't work that way. It's decentralized. Once people start to realize that and they realize the price delta that we bring against AWS, I think we're going to see good uptake. So I'm mindful that, I could be over enthusiastic about it. I don't think we're going to fill up 80 petabytes by the end of the year. But I'm also pretty optimistic that we're going to do well with this thing pretty quickly. And part of it is because there's a lot of people associated with the project that have the ability to turn the lever, right? We have people that are associated with the project that are MSPs, that are standing up MSPs, that know MSPs, that have the ability to go out there and find the data and turn it on. And even you could stand up other people to get a relayer running and then get an override in an affiliate contract. We have, as we said several meetings ago, we have a partner program where you can get paid in one of two ways. You can essentially do all the legwork, do the billing for the customer, do the support, provide, the relayers, stand them up for them, either run them in your facility or run them for them in their facility. If you're doing all that work as a cloud service professional, then you're going to make a really nice percentage on all of the cloud subscriptions that they end up uploading to the network. That is the lucrative way to become an MSP on our network. But there's going to be the other way, which is just collect a simple affiliate fee, which is you refer a customer to us, they take on storage on the network, and you get a small percentage off that for some period of time that they have their stuff on the network. That's going to be a really powerful way of generating lots of storage on the network. And I think a lot of you guys, once you start realizing, yeah, I know a bunch of people I can refer to this thing. And at the end of the day, then you get it coming both ways. You get storage on your provider, and you also get a percentage of the storage sale on top. Can't beat that. You literally can't beat it. It's really good stuff. And then the other thing was the Examiner question. I can't remember the first question.
I think the last email I signed up for, I think he mentioned that there's going to be a limit in terms of the miners being sold.
Oh, yeah. Well, the limit look. Here's the thing. Here's the thing about the limit. If we were any other project, here's what we would do. We would essentially, overpromise on these things. We would say that the rebates were 70%, not 40, right? We would, go nuts and essentially say that over the course of the next year to 2 years, these rebates will pay out. Or we could even go 100%. Why not? I mean, this is what people do in crypto. They pull this stupid shit. And we could easily do it. We could say, we'll pay you back 100% of this whole entire sale in coins on these examiners for $3,500. And there's hard costs underneath that we have to pay for. And then essentially what we would do is then take a bunch of that money and go out and, run the price of the coin up so that we don't have to pay out as many coins on the, rebate payouts as we're going along. And, just pray to God that the market doesn't ever go south. But it always goes south. At some point the market always goes down and those projects always get exposed as frauds, Ponzi schemes. And that's exactly what that is. That's not what we're building. We'll give you back 100% of a $99 license because all our costs are already all baked into that. It's the coding that the developers are doing. There's no hard cost for us on it. But we're not going to do something stupid like sell 8,000 examiners at 100% off because we want to book like $23 million in sales and then run away and live on a boat. Although I guess living on a boat doesn't sound too bad. Maybe we need to reevaluate, think about whether pulling a rug is a good answer. But anyway, that's why it's limited. That's the limitation. We're doing it only to the extent that we know that we can cover. We only write the checks we know we can cover. Now, if the price of the coin goes flying up, that'll give us more freedom to sell more units. But there is a limit as 3 units per person. So if that's the limit you're talking about, that's never going to change just because we don't want to sell 100 units to one person because we don't want to have to battle with them on eBay for, where people buy our units from.
Yeah. And it would be good to get more information about the Relay affiliate program as well. So if there's a link on the Medium.
That's coming. That's coming real quick. Chaz and a few other people are going to be getting together over the next couple of weeks because now's the time. We're ready to kind of get that going. And, I think you're going to see something very quickly on that, on the affiliate stuff. Really, the first step right now is we've got to get past a couple of really dumb, stupid kinds of things with the relayer where people are falling in holes that maybe they shouldn't fall into. And once we do that, then we can really start going with the partners.
Lovely. Thank you, man. Take care.
Cool. Have a good one. Flip.
Hey, I was had an opportunity to tinker around with a relayer for a bit, and I was curious, and I'd preface by apologizing if this is in documentation or if it's already been answered before, but I was curious if when you're providing the storage to your customers, are you able to provide that storage to multiple customers off of one relayer, or do you need to provision multiple relayers, one for each customer that you're providing storage? And also, do you have anything on the roadmap for the future to have any type of LDAP hooks or domain trust for group policy or permissions or anything like that in the future between the relayer and the customer?
Yeah, so I'll take that last part first. This has been a pet area. Jay will be smiling right now because he knows that I've been banging on this forever. But we definitely need to build out a full IAM, and we definitely need to have LDAP hooks, and we definitely need that whole policy provisioning. And I think we have a pretty good understanding of the next steps to get there, but it will be something that will essentially be rolled out over the course of the next couple of quarters. You'll just keep seeing the same level of development from us as we push those things out. Now, to get to your first one, because right now you can do it with this, simple ACLs on who can access the relayer, and you definitely can provide some real basic levels of, privacy and permissioning in order to dole out access to the relayer data to some people while not doling it out to others. It's not really robust, and it's definitely not at all, sort of granular at this point, but that's coming. But as far as multiple companies, if let's say I stand up an operation, say, well, look, I'm going to go ahead and provision relayers for people, and I'm going to sell them storage, and I'll book the subscription revenue fee, as well as I'll get some consulting money out of it, and I'll essentially have a nice little business. I think there's going to be a lot of people doing that. But what ends up happening is this: if you stand up a single relayer and then ultimately have multiple customers coming in at the same time, their data is all intertwined. And I don't think your customers are going to want that, because what's going to happen is they're all going to be uploading their data into this cache, and then the data is all going to get segmented and then uploaded into the providers together. And so it's going to be a thing where everybody's data is intermingling. Now, you can make a case that might not be a problem, right? That they don't care. I mean, it's going up into the data center, and as far as they're concerned, as long as it's durable and can be recovered, they're fine with it. But at the end of the day, I just think you're going to run into some really weird issues, and there's really no real need for it. I mean, you typically can recoup your costs of standing up a virtual machine and running a relay or architecture on top of it pretty quickly. I don't think it's going to be the thing that really holds you back. I think if you get into the really bigger, more robust relayers that we're talking about, which will have really advanced cache segmentation, so like, a relayer that ends up having something like, a couple 100 terabytes of storage on it, and 100 terabytes is dedicated to a persistent cache that lives forever. 100 terabytes is dedicated to, performant cache that's, all on NVMEs, and then you have some other, segment, for like ransomware protection that is mutable and can't be touched, and really walled off into a garden. That kind of relayer might cost some money, but you can charge your customer more money for that service as well, because that's going to be, some features and benefits that you can turn around as a salesperson and actually sell through to them on top of the actual storage costs themselves. So I think it's a relayer. Every customer is going to be our best practices. It's certainly possible to have multiple customers come into a single relayer, but I just don't think it's going to be the guided idea that we want to support. I will just touch on this last thing about that, because right now, the relayers are built to run on premise for most customers, and I still think that's going to be the ideal configuration, because think about it. Here I am, I have a headquarters in one city, back to Hamburg, Germany. All of my, enterprise is based there, and I upload from there. Well, that's going to be, uploaded to the relayer on my local network, so that's going to be fast, gig or 10 gig or whatever, and then from there it's going to go out to the network. Well, if you stand the relayer up at your facility, let's say you build 100 relayers at your facility and then sell those to your customers, and that's a thing, and I think it's going to be a big thing, then what you need to make sure is that you have really performant internet between you and your customers, because it's going to be a hop. You're going to put a hop to you in there and then up to the network. And so that's going to introduce latency. It's going to introduce, extra time for downloads. And it's just going to essentially degrade the performance, even if ever slightly. But you're going to have to be aware that that's a thing and part, of this equation in terms of how the architecture works.
Now, you mentioned Kubernetes, and I was just curious, based on what you were just saying there, have there been any talks or ideas for maybe way down the future to have some sort of, full service micro mesh for the relayers, and essentially us at the other end could end up just joining a global cluster of relayers and different tiers based on your system's performance?
So this is the dream. We call that a stateless relayer, and it probably would look pretty much exactly as you just described it. The whole idea of the stateless relayer is that these relayers would sort of live up in the cloud, and you just reach up and access the relayer that is closest or has the features that you're looking for in terms of performance or whatever, and anybody is able to stand up relayers and get paid for provisioning them and so forth, and it's decentralized and it's permissionless. That's where we're headed. That's the future. That is endgame for us. We don't talk about it a lot because we're evolution then revolution. We're sell traditional storage over S3 to people that want to pay us with credit cards. But the future does look exactly like you just said, and we do have roadmap, white sort of boarding done on that, and very clear ideas of how we're going to get there. I just can't tell you when it's going to actually show up. That is an open question. It's not months. It's definitely more than 1 year. But then how far out after that is it? It might just be 2 or 3 years. I don't know. Okay, I'll take that as your final question. Thanks. J4. All right, I'm going to go past you.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
First question. So, is it the 8 gigabyte RAM in the relays, the X miner right now? Is it enough, or should we upgrade later? My second question regarding you mentioned about the offer of resales. You mentioned about basically one of us, he could be kind of a cloud service provider. Is it going to be kind of a type of white label service? The third question regarding if I'm going to offer for a company to have basically those relays installed in their facilities. So buying the relays plus the cost is going to be kind of less expensive than the use of Azure or AWS. The fourth question regarding the cybersecurity space, you mentioned something regarding the ransomware. Is it a different type of relays, or is basically an upgrade for the existing one? Thank you.
First of all, dude, I'm an old guy, right? You can't throw 4 questions. I can't even remember my name half the time. But I'll start out and try and get past it.
Always.
As far as how expensive it's going to be to buy relayers and provision them for the world, I think this is a real open question, that we don't quite yet know the answer to. We first of all didn't know if people would actually be willing to stand up relayers. We still don't know, by the way, but we do have some indications of that. If you look at a company like Cloudian sells a 4U box and a this hyperstore thing that they build, which provides some caching and performance oriented tuning and some things along those lines. And they built a really good business on it. But they don't have the back end network that we have, right? They don't have the same, full panoply of services that they can offer behind. And they've still done really good. So I don't think that the cost profile of relayers, even if you get into, really romantic versions that are big, horsepower driven giant things, I think you're going to find buyers and users that will pay up for them simply because they need that kind of performance and scale and capability that these things are going to provide. So we might even do certain kinds of things with relayers where when we sell them, we say, this is a Euro-based relayer. So back to the original question about, adhering to certain compliance laws. We might build a relayer that just doesn't let you choose providers outside of your area without some kind of deep dive into it and reset it or something along those lines, because the CSP doesn't want to allow that. The sky's the limit for us on these relayers, and I think we're going to make sure that you share in that if you join us as a partner and want to make money. As far as Examiners and 8 gigs of RAM, it's easy to upgrade an Examiner and add another stick in there. There's really no reason to do it. There's just nothing that shows that memory improves the performance on an Examiner storage provider beyond the 8 gigs. But if it ultimately turns out that we roll some features that do that, upgrading is not going to be an issue. Yeah, you got to kind of squeeze in there, but at the end of the day, Examiners will take that second 8 gig module real easily, and I don't see it going past 16 gigs if it ever even goes back past 8 gigs. And like I said, I'm fucking old. So what are the other 2 questions?
The white label service, basically for
yeah. Don't ask the second one because I'll forget it. So the white label, definitely, yeah. I can definitely see white labeling as being an adjunct offshoot of our partnering program. Right now, if we do affiliate fees and higher level commissions for people that provision, yeah, heck yes, do a third level that essentially lets you white label a storage and call it your own. I definitely think that's something that we'll be able to roll out. That's more of a marketing thing than it is a technical thing. We can easily do that on the back end for you, and it will definitely be there. And I bet you forgot the 4th question.
No. Regarding you mentioned about one of the relays has the ransomware capability for Protect Guard. Is it kind of another level, like top-notch level for the relays, or kind of upgrade? You can do it in the back end.
Jay is like sweating right now because I'm about to write a check that he can't yet cash. No, that doesn't exist yet. That's just a thing in my head. It's a thing that's pretty. I don't want to say it's easy or trivial for us to implement, but cache segmentation is a very powerful feature that we are going to transition into, fleshing out and fulfilling over the next, period of time. We have so much work backlog on our calendars into the end of the year that, as much funding as we can raise between now and the end of the year, we are going to onboard developers and we have work to throw at them. And cache segmentation is a real big one. I'm sure of it. I'm sure that cache segmentation is one of those things that will accelerate the onboarding and the acquisition of customers. So yeah, ransomware is a huge one. I mean, you show up and you tell somebody, look, I can provide you ransomware protection in this thing. Bang, you've sold 20% of the people you talk to right there on that one thing. So, and it's built into our thing. I mean, we have this cache now, and so once we set that cache up, all we have to do is wall it off and make some portion of that cache immutable, untouchable, and persistent, and bang, all of a sudden we've got your ransomware covered.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I know a client which is it's a big sell point. When if you mention cache segmentation and ransomware, is gonna be on board right away. Like it's a huge. Another question, basically for the people they wanna kind of run the white label service. Are you gonna offer separate webinars to walk them through the process and so on and so forth? Or it's going to be kind of posted in the website and they figure out by themselves?
What's happened this year is that, our eyes got opened when we went to NAB. I think NAB was a very good show for us. I think the media and entertainment world has definitely got a lot of data to upload to our network and will. But I think we saw that there's a new normal in play, because even though you didn't have to wear a mask on the airplane to get to this trade show, it's still kind of difficult getting into the country from other countries to come to the trade show. So, the participation at the show was down about 50%. Now, I need to look at this Money 2020 conference that just went off in the Netherlands to see what, participation looked like this year from previous years, if there were. I need to keep watching that because I want to see what it looks like out there. But, those in-person kinds of selling and marketing things have given way to the webinars, to the onboard training videos, to the consultative sales where we build white papers, we build case studies, we put a consultant in a Zoom call who walks you through certain things. We put all that together in an electronic format for you to have. And right now, that has literally become Henry's primary, raison d'etre for being here. And I think he's going to do a great job of it. He did a wonderful job demoing at the trade show and really showing that he has an aptitude and a skill set for that. We've got a solid list of things that we want to do first in terms of training vids and orientation vids, and then we need to build out the list of case studies and white papers that we need to write behind it, and we will. But yes, I think the answer to your question is a resounding yes, that we will have plenty of resourcing on the websites as I transition more into marketing and really kind of get the team the resources and tooling that they need to get that done.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Good questions. Great questions, actually. Oh, we made it. Did we make it? How much time do we spend today? 90 minutes? Not bad. All right. Good call, guys. I'm really happy to be here to do these. I love that you keep showing up week in and week out, and I love that you're here in the Discord. I love that you're paying attention. I love that you're using relayers. I love that you're telling your friends about it, picking up Twitter and tweeting this thing out, going to Facebook and spending time out there. I love that you're all going to become CSPs over the next couple of years, and you're going to make money coming and going. That is a big thing when people show up and says, where's the data at? Well, you know what? The data is going to come from you, or at least some of the data is going to come from you, because you're going to stand up and say, hey, if there's money to be made, I want to be part of it. And we're going to make that possible for you. So of course you're going to want to make some of that money. And that's part of how this network's going to get built and fleshed out really quickly. That's part and parcel of building the distributed data center. That's what Evolution Then Revolution is all about. You guys are the revolutionaries. You guys are seizing the means of production. Oh, wait, I'm starting to talk like Che Guevara, so I better slow down now and call it a day. Thanks again for showing up. We really appreciate you being here. Buy an Examiner. You can. And actually, they're kind of in stock right now, so that's a secret. People are going to start seeing stuff hit the shipping pretty quickly and hit the docks. I don't know how long that's going to last before we're out of stock and we have to wait for the China orders to come across. But right now you can do it. So take advantage if the email hits you. And thanks a lot. Have a great day.